Hi there. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create your own Beat Saber knockoff or stretching assistance tool, whichever way you want to see it. But either way, let's get started here. So to begin with, I'm going to be using the program that I actually showed you how to code in my last video. So we'll start from there. To begin with, we need to remove some of the aspects that we don't need. So we're actually going to be using our webcam to capture the video. So I'm going to get rid of those files, don't need them anymore. Get rid of these links to those files. And I'm actually going to be putting the webcam video in there instead. Second thing is, let's get rid of the skeleton. I need to know about the skeleton for this use case. I'll just totally get rid of that. Other thing, I'm just going to adjust the canvas size to make it a little larger, just to fit the image in better. This makes things work. So next step, we want to draw the video to the full screen. And the other thing I'm going to do is just totally remove all this code in here so that we're not drawing every single key point. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is drawing just a few key points. So to begin with here, I'm just drawing a red ellipse at the position of the right wrist. So that'll be index 9. And so we're going to be drawing that ellipse at position X as well as the position Y. And let's just make that 20 by 20 for now. And then next up, I'll draw the other wrist. And so we'll make this one blue just so it looks a little different for us. And that's going to be at position 10. So what I can actually do is just steal this code here and just change this over to 10. And all right, let's give that a go. So it seems like it's partially working. I think my chair is getting in the way, so that's part of the issue there. But yeah, so that's working pretty well. One thing you may notice is that the video is actually inverted, it's mirroring. And so to stop that, to make it a little more intuitive, what I can do is I can, first of all, I'm going to translate the canvas. So it's actually going to be off the screen. So I'm going to translate by the width of the canvas, and then I don't want to do any Y translations. And then knowing that, I'm going to flip it back around on the x-axis so it's back in frame. To do that, I'm going to be using scale to the -1, and then once again, we're not bothering with the Y in this case, just the X. So to demonstrate that, out of the way. And now see when I raise my right arm, on the video it's the same arm. Just makes things a little more intuitive. And there we go. So that concludes part 1 of the video. And the next part, I'll be showing you how to create random rectangles that pop up in the corners for you as targets. Okay, so now we're on to part 2 of this demonstration. So for this part, I'm going to be creating the rectangles in the corners, the targets. We want them to be randomly switching based on some time value. So to start with here, let's just draw those rectangles. Just make sure that they're going to be appearing in the right positions because it's quite annoying to fine-tune this when they're flickering all over the screen. So the first one that I've just done is going to be 10 pixels down or over and 10 pixels down from the starting position of the canvas. And then the next one here is also on top, but it's now 460 pixels over. So that'll actually be the upper left corner up here. I'll just make that one quickly. So now we've got our bottom 2 rectangles. These are both have a Y value of 460. All these are going to be 100 by 100 pixels as for dimensions. And then that final value of 20 is just the amount of rounding that the corners get. So just 20 pixels of rounding. Let's try that out. We should have 4 rectangles in the corners. There we go. So you'll notice they're all blue. That's just due to this fill here. We haven't specified any other color for these rectangles. They'll just use the last value. Next up, I want to make those positions random, and I only ever want to see one rectangle at once. So to do that, I'll make a position variable, and then I'm also going to make a positions array, and I'm just going to insert some string values. So we'll have our upper left, our upper right corner, lower left, finally lower right. And then, as I mentioned before, this can be based on some kind of time value. So I'm going to use a timer to do that. So I'm setting this to 3000 initially. 3000 is the milliseconds that we're measuring. So 3000 milliseconds is 3 seconds. So it should be 3 seconds before any action happens, any rectangles are drawn. I'll set up a little if statement for that here. What I'm going to do is be measuring the program runtime, this milliseconds function, and if that becomes greater than the timer, that 3-second value, then I want position to become equal to a randomly selected positions from that array up there. What this function's doing is just picking one of these at random, so it could be upper left, could be lower left. There is a chance that it'll pick upper left and then go into the function after 3 seconds again and pick upper left again. I'm not too worried about that. That's not going to cause any issues for us or anything. So now that that's done, I want to actually increase the timer just so that it's not constantly running. And that way this is only happening every 3 seconds, not constantly. And finally here, we'll just put these rectangles into their if statements to make sure we're only drawing one. This is upper left, draw that one. Otherwise, we'll draw right. Lower left. And finally, you could use an else for this, but I specified an initial 3-second wait period. So if I just do an else statement there, it's going to be drawing that shape anyways, which I don't want. So I'll make this lower right. Seems I've made a mistake. It's just missing bodies in the statements. Oh, no, missing an equals. There we go. So now I'm going to throw the rectangles in there and give it a run and see if we only see the one rectangle, and it should switch after 3 seconds. There's nothing. There we go. And then it'll switch. There we go. See if we can get all the corners here. Sure, I didn't make a mistake with that bottom right. It seems like this time it picked the same position a couple times in a row. That does happen. Where to pick from. There we go. That's all 4 positions covered. And now the shape is still blue, so I want it to be either red or blue based on the wrist position, and I want this to be randomized as well to an extent. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm actually going to make it so that the wrist positions correspond to which side your wrist is on, because the program tends to have troubles when you're reaching across your body. It just struggles a bit more with that. But what I'm going to use for this is I'm just going to base it on the position. I suppose I could actually just go down here and just fill these based on where they are. I apologize, this is not actually entirely random. The coloring, the position is, but just for this demonstration. So I want my lefts to be red and my rights to be blue. This will be red. And finally, this will be blue. Let's give that a go. And so now we should have a colored, there we go. So it seems like I've mixed up the sides, and there's a pretty easy fix for that. I'm just gonna switch the colors here. Just so the wrists are actually the things that will be colored differently. And so I'll just make this red. This out of here. The other wrist blue. So now what we should have is shapes. Done. Chairs in the way again. I can pour it. Yeah, there we go. That seems to be working well, and that concludes part 2 of this demonstration. Okay, so I've now implemented the hit detection function. So as I mentioned previously, this is just checking those key points, both the Y and X positions, and seeing if those are in the general area of those rectangles that are being drawn. And it should only be checking for the current rectangle. So you shouldn't see any score incrementing or hit detection or anything for a rectangle that isn't even being drawn. The only other thing that I've implemented in that time is just this little score at the bottom. So it's just going to draw a small green text box and just increment that as the score or as the hit is being detected. So that pretty much finishes off the program. I'll give you a demonstration here of it working. It's registering the risks. After a few seconds, we get our first rectangle, and that should switch. There we go. So now let's try out the hit detection. See how we did. See, it's not really moving my wrist, but the positions seem to be kind of flickering all over. And so that's actually not the model that's doing that. Well, it is the model. The issue lies in my computer's performance. So it's relaying the video at such a poor frame rate that the program's just having a really hard time guessing where my key points are. You can see it's working pretty well. A good stretch on. Feel low for that one. Nice.